to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that if you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Mr. Fields has circulated to the Commission last month's draft minutes. Is there a motion regarding approval or amendment?
I'll move to appeal, to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We're going to move up one item on our agenda under the consent agenda. We've got several other passenger vehicles for hire who have sought company applications. Mr. Fields?
Yes, all the companies that are listed, the LPVH companies as well as the one wrecker company have filed the applications. All the paperwork is in order.
Is there a motion regarding approval?
I make a motion for approval en banc to the OPV applications and the wrecker and towing service.
Yes. Any discussion on the issue? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We've got a public hearing on rulemaking related to the company application process. Ms. Alarcon, do you have your laptop?
Oh, no, I didn't know if you were ready to, wanted to speak on something. Just.
Oh, you are ready? Oh, I thought we were waiting. Gotcha.
Oh.
I misunderstood.
I didn't think good.
It is, but it's actually on your screen. So the team was actually really, thank you very much.
All right,
I was
so
really grateful that the team put it into part of the presentation so it would be public record as well.
So our next item then has to do with the new Ebike pilot program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. So as you remember, there was some conversation in the past, and when we brought back the renewal of the scooter contract, there was a request to move forward with the Ebike. I had made the request for this board to consider to hold it until we finish our Connect Downtown study, which we're looking to have actually that done sometime in the first quarter of next year. And we will be bringing back a lot of those recommendations to this board to inform you of the outcome of that. But there was a request to consider how we might be able to move it forward. I was asked to look at doing a pilot program. So I've been working, and staff's been working with our companies, Bird, Lime, and Spin, on putting together a Dockless program. So what I really want to do right now is just go through the Dockless pilot program with y'all, kind of make you aware of what we're looking and thinking of doing. And then again, I just want to reiterate that this will not be in the area where Connect Downtown study is currently going on. But we are working hand in hand with each other to make sure we're going to be providing some additional bike racks in the area, and that's going to be shown on the map. But the Dockless e-bike program is going to include 25 e-bikes to kick off by each one of the vendors, so a total of 75. We will be geofencing the parking around the bike racks because we are going to require them to dock them, and they don't have to secure them, but they are going to pick them up and leave them at bike racks that we have scattered out. We are looking to add an additional 34 bike racks, and the city will actually be doing that. My department will be actually adding the 35 bike racks, but we've worked in conjunction with the companies about where they should be strategically placed so that we would have the best success on meeting that program of them, not just dumping them in the right of way, but actually placing them at a place so that public safety is kept number one. So here's kind of a map that I wanted to share with you. The blue dots currently represent where we have bike racks. The black dots represent where we will be adding bike racks. The black line is our pilot area. So if you remember when we first started this conversation, we were actually looking to start just in Councilmember Sledge's district. The companies looked at it and said from a business model that didn't work. So I said, okay, go look and tell me how we need to expand to where the business model made sense. So they actually came back with this recommendation. I'm very comfortable with this. So this will actually be the pilot program area that we're going to be kicking off. The peak lines actually represent the bike lanes that we have within the pilot area. And as you can see, I need a lot more pink for the use of dockless bikes or bikes in general. So it kind of really pushes the envelope for me on that end. So basically, I just wanted to bring it back to the board and let y'all know we are actually, don't need approval or anything with that, but I wanted to make y'all aware and let you know kind of the timeline is now that we've presented this, unless y'all have any issues or concerns, we would then begin installing the bike racks, and we would look at trying to get this up in the next 30 days and operating in pilot motion. And then I'll be happy to come back and bring you an update as to where we are at, 6 or 7 months down the road. So with that, I will end that. Oh, thank you. This is the actual addresses of where we'll be adding the bike racks. So we're being very thorough in our practice. Is there anything else, or is that it, TD? That's it. That's what I thought. So thank you. I'll take any questions at this time.
Are the bike racks ones that are, I guess, a combination of ones that developers install as part of a project, as well as ones that Metro's installed in the past?
Yes, sir, because if you, typically when a developer is installing a bike rack that's within the right-of-way, it's in the approval process, but it's meant for public use. So yes, when we actually have plotted out all of the bike racks that we have, we're looking at bike racks that are installed in the right-of-way, whether we did it or it was done through a development, but they were meant for public use.
Do you think there's a way, I think about some of the projects I've been involved in where we do have bike racks, and I have either visitors or staff that commute to work and use the bike racks to park. How do we help keep those available, right? So if at some point there could be 400 e-bikes on the street. I don't know what the end goal would be.
Well, I do think that part of the reason why we're doing the pilot and we're starting with the number is to understand what is a good capacity level for the bikes and then also there will most likely be opportunities where we have to expand the number of bike racks that we have. I mean, I have to share with y'all, one of our goals in the department is actually to really think about becoming a multimodal community. So it's not all about the cars. So I'm realistic to the fact that I'm going to have to expand bike racks.
For sure.
As we make that mode more accessible and available, I have to also make it where someone who's not using maybe an e-bike or a dockless bike program, they have their own bike, I have to provide them the tools and the resources to secure it, otherwise they won't use it. So I am very aware that there will probably be some outcome of this where we'll have to expand bike racks, and we would look at doing that. So where we have capacity issues, we would do that. But one of the reasons why we are starting with the number is I hope that this business plan goes well, and they're going to come back to me and say, hey, Diana, we want to pop in this many more numbers. And then there's always that number that we're going to hit, and when we know what that max is of how many e-bikes we want out there from a dockless sense, we're going to figure out what that number is. It's going to be a right fit from a public safety perspective for Nashville.
And I guess, thinking out loud here as well, as these people are deploying the bikes every morning, because maybe they go home and charge at night, like scooters, or no?
Yes, they do. A lot of, I'm going to actually, Sam, can you help me out with that? Some of these are charged, but a lot of these are electric bikes, and they're charging by pedaling. So they're going to be handling them the same way as the scooters. They'll actually be moving them around. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but part of the scooter program is they'll actually come in every morning, and they will move them. They'll restage them. Thank you. They'll restage them so that there's an appropriate number. Thank you so much. Now I'm safe for my 2 o'clock. They'll restage them so that they're spread out appropriately. They will be doing the same thing with the e-bikes.
And I guess as you think about that restaging, it would be, don't put, if there's 8 bike racks in front of a building, maybe put for.
Correct.
6
Yes,
there.
sir.
Leave a couple open for the.
For the regular bicyclists, yes, sir.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why they have identified where we need additional bike racks. So that I've taken on the onus and responsibility for the Dockless bikes, that my team will be going out and implementing and installing this. So we have the opportunity to expand if need, and it would just be, let me know, pick up the phone and call me.
What happens if I rent an e-bike, I'm excited for it, I wear my helmet.
Thank you.
Yes, so I do all that.
Good.
And what happens if I want to ride it from Midtown to downtown?
So that is,
Under this program.
it will not allow you, it'll stop working.
Will it beep so that it doesn't just stop working? while
It
I'm
will,
pedaling?
you'll have to, the way it should be geo-fenced is that if you go outside the fence and you're on your bike, the electric, won't work. It'll act as a regular pedal.
I can still pedal though,
You can pedal, and then
you won't go far
you won't go far.
because it's heavy and it's hard to pedal.
Correct. So, and there'll be a lot of advertisement on the actual bikes that, hey, this is your fence, this is where you need to stay if you go outside. But keep in mind, one of the reasons why we're setting up the bike racks and we find it so important is we don't want the bike racks just dumped in the right of way. So we're looking to penalize if they leave them somewhere they're not supposed
So if
to.
they leave them blocking the sidewalk, it's geofenced and there's a fee or a fine that's charged?
That
for
is what we're
that?
looking to do, is they would be fined, that they'll be told to put it back at a bike rack. They'll have the location of the bike racks. That's why they're asking for these additional bike racks. It'll be easy accessible. They just drop it off and they can go. If they fail to do that, there'll be a fine attached to their cost of using the bikes.
Great.
So this is a pilot, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot of things as we go through it, and some things that will want to change and upgrade, but I feel really comfortable with moving this initiative forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Sam, thank you.
Just to the point on recharging, we don't have to take the e-bikes actually back to somebody's home to recharge them. The batteries, or at least on the Bird, are swappable.
Right.
There will be quite a bit of labor in terms of rebalancing them to the stations, but the good news is the
See,
recharging.
That's the right word, rebalancing.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam. Not restaging, rebalancing. Thank you. Any other questions?
If I could say one thing, I want to thank Councilman Sledge for being ready to do this.
Yes.
I'll also point out he's getting a brand-new separated bike lane down 12 South, which is what all of these need to be.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but you got to give me time to get it done, sir.
I know, you said that before, but again,
Yeah,
thank
but-
you.
I've been here 8 months.
I
I'm
know,
really working hard to get it done, but I'm
As
not.
you can tell,
it's
she's
hard.
heard too much from me and people like me, but I appreciate your doing this, and I hope it works, and
Me
I
too.
guarantee you, people like me are going to do our best to make it work.
I do see missing on your map, there's a large bike lane on Thompson Lane from Nolensville Pike to, easily to 8th, I think.
That is actually not a bike lane. It's actually just a curb, or I want to say a shoulder, but it's not actually an official bike lane because it's not the right width. However, we do have a project that is forthcoming where we will be repaving Thompson Lane, and we will properly be installing bike lanes on Thompson Lane.
Wow.
So yes, we are moving in that direction, but right now it's actually just more of a shoulder, and it doesn't meet the, we cannot call it a bike lane. There are actually standards and specifications that I must hit to refer to something as a bike lane and even actually include it as a marking. So there's some share rows that are down, but not actual bike lanes. But with the repaving project, we'll be reducing the width of some of the lanes. Not reducing lanes, just reducing the width of the lanes. That will allow us to add an official bike lane with protected bike lanes that would actually meet the specifications to call it a bike lane. So we're moving in that direction. I'm really looking forward to that one. Actually, Tommy Jones is responsible for the repaving project, and then he's working with our planning. Anna Dearman actually heads up our walk and bike plan, and so she is collaborating on the design that will be actually put back in the pavement. So that's an opportunity where we're paving and we can change the striping, so there's tremendous savings that can happen with it, and that's just a really good place where synergy is happening. Thank you. Thank y'all very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next item on our agenda is a public hearing We're considering a new rule related to the company application process. Mr. Fields?
At the present time, if a company were to apply for a permit or a certificate or any of the various operating instruments that the commission has access to, there's really not a limit to the amount of times they can apply. One of the issues that we've had is multiple applications and then maybe multiple denials. So we're asking that you consider a rule that would allow somebody to apply. If they are denied, they could come back in 90 days and reapply. If they're denied after 90 days, then they would have to wait a year to reapply. It's a little different from the standpoint of we issue certain licenses that are not subject to annual hearings, and there is one certificate of public convenience and necessity that is also not subject to annual meetings. Everything else is an annual meeting, so we did work with Ms. Costonas to make sure that we were able to address it. I do think the way it was noticed, there are also a couple of people that want to talk about just general company applications. So if you have a few minutes, just to talk about when companies apply, there's some issues they'd like to share with you that could result in a rule if you chose to go that route. But the purpose staff brought forward was would be administrative section 117 that says company reapplication following TLC denial is the title of the rule. And I'm happy to read it if you'd like for me to read it into the record.
If you could, there's one person who's asked to speak, but she's unsure if she's for or against, so I think it would be helpful.
The recommendation would be section 117 of the administrative rules, company application following TLC denial. Section A, in the event of a company's application for an operating permit or certificate of public convenience and necessity, in parentheses, for general wrecker services, booting service, or other passenger vehicles for hire, in parentheses, is denied, a new application from the company will not be considered for a period of 90 days. Further, in the event of a second denial, a new company application would not be considered for a period of 1 year. B section, in the event of a company's application for either a certificate of public convenience or necessity or an operating permit is denied, a new application from the company will not be able to be considered until the TLC's next scheduled annual meeting for taxi cabs, emergency wreckers, horse-drawn carriages, low-speed vehicles, pedal vehicles, pedicabs, or entertainment transportation regarding the type of certificate or license sought. If a permit, certificate, or license is revoked, the company will not be able to be considered until the second annual meeting following the date of revocation.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing for comment, and I'll call on Lisa LeClaire.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Lisa LeClaire, 606 Maplewood Lane, Nashville, Tennessee. I was the one who said I just wanted to reserve the right to be for or against, but I hadn't seen what the rule was going to be, just in case. And the only thing I heard in there, Billy, that I might add is to clarify if it's a 12 months or 1 year from the initial application or the 90 days.
I think that'd be up to the commission to make a determination. Our intention would have been from the second denial.
Okay, just wanted to clarify
but-
that, and otherwise I'm in favor. Thank you.
Is anyone else who'd like to speak on the issue?
Mr. Chairman, it's not specific on the issue, but there is a question about availability of vehicles which would allow for chair access and disability access. It's a little off topic, but since we do have a public hearing, we do have someone to speak. If you could give her 2 or 3 minutes just to make her point, I would appreciate it.
All right, of course.
Hi, I'm Joy Andall, 2197 Nolensville Pike. I haven't been in a chair that long, but I'm running into accessibility barriers. What do I do when my chair breaks down and I need to be taken home if I only have one person. I don't have a support system here in town. One day I was at the zoo, and we weren't sure I could get home. So I started educating myself. The home health said, no, we don't have that. I called EMTs, and they said, well, we can only pick you up and take you to the emergency room and leave you there. But if my chair isn't working, they don't really want to pick it up physically. They're not, so that's kind of a little bit off, different than it's not a stretcher or whatever. So I'm asking about wreckers, because I recently had to rent a U-Haul truck to transport myself somewhere, because wheelchair accessible vehicles are $180 a day. So if I break down and it's 30-40 minute wait on non-emergency phone line, and I'm stuck and I don't have a backup system, can I call a wrecker? And if I can call a wrecker to pick me up and drop me off at my home, like my car, I'm still an accessible person in my car. Do they have accessibility training? And if not, do we need to add that to like an hour little certificate to everybody that drives or the companies and say, we know what to do when somebody calls us in this situation? Or can you offer me something better? Because I'm still learning with my accessibility barriers what to do. So that was just bringing up, is a wrecker, a tow truck, the appropriate thing? Can they tow me home? I know that sounds crazy dumb, but when you're out there stuck in the sand and you can't get anybody, you can't get out of the sand and nobody will help you, what do you do? So just not trying to be silly, but it's a real world question. Thank you.
And if I may, if we could get your contact information, the commission has had historic involvement with the disability the community that goes back to at least 2000, working to have accessible taxi cabs, which is the real good answer for that. COVID, like a lot of things, played havoc on our accessible taxi cabs. We have very few accessible taxi cabs, which is really the answer to that. The short answer to your question is yes, we can certainly talk with the record companies, but I think we can do better. So let me, I know that Commissioner Westlake certainly has far greater expertise than me, so I'm going to call upon her smiling face and say that she and I will take a project and see if we can, one, get a specific answer, but potentially look at long-term, to revisit the whole issue of accessibility on our taxi cabs. Nope.
The taxi cabs you called, and sometimes they are days booked with wheelchair access.
That's part of the problem, yes, ma'am.
Older vehicles, some of them too, more than the 8-year, I think, statute, federal statute on that. So they're very hard to get into.
Yes, ma'am, and we recognize that there have been some limitations. The commission has taken, we have taken exception to some of the rules to allow longer-term use of taxi cabs for accessibility. We also have to temper that with the safety issues of it. But again, if we can make sure we just get your contact information before you leave, we will. That's, again, it's near and dear to my heart, and I know Ms. Westlake and I have talked about it a lot of times over the years because we worked on it over the years. So thank you for sharing, and we certainly understand that. I can't guarantee the result, but I can guarantee action. We'll do our best.
Could I ask a question about that? We require them to have accessible vehicles.
What we've done in the past, we've never had to require them. What we've done is given, historically what we would do with the taxi cab company is given them, we have a 10% rule. We would allow, or not a 10%, we would allow them to basically freely add any taxi cab to their fleet above the number that's assigned by the commission. So if they came in and they had 100 taxi cabs and they wanted to add 15 accessible cabs, we would let them do that. They would pay the fees, but it would not count against their top number. So we encourage them to do that. But unfortunately, two great things have happened, great as in huge things have happened with taxi cabs.
Impactful.
One goes back to Uber and Lyft.
Right.
That has changed the face of taxi cabs all around the country and the world. And the other and then COVID, there were many cabs that just went out of business, drivers that didn't come back. So we also may have some opportunities with your OPVH companies that may have some accessibility that we don't require. But again, your question is, could you? Yes, you could. If the commission said for every 10 cabs you have to have accessibility, or you just say every company's got to have 5, but we could certainly work with you and make some recommendations.
And I know the answer to this, but could we require Lyft and Uber to do the same thing?
We cannot. Lyft and Uber are not required to be licensed or managed by this office.
Could we encourage?
Uber and Lyft?
Yeah.
We could certainly encourage.
Is there a carrot that we can offer?
We will add that to our list to reach out.
Offer more vehicles or.
Yeah, there's no carrots that they need from us.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Pivoting back to the rulemaking for company application processes, is there anyone else who would like to speak on that issue before I close the public hearing? At this point in time, we'll close the public hearing so we can deliberate on this potential new rule for the application process. Any commissioners who would like to comment on the potential rule?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say that I think it is a rule that makes sense when we deliberate on these things to give it an opportunity, and then to not have to do it every month, for example, would be a good idea.
Well, I've been away for a while, and I was just wondering, did something happen that promulgated the need or precipitated the need for this new rule?
We had a applicant over a 2-meeting period that made applications back to back, and we had not had that particular issue happen before, and it just raised the issue of we started looking at the rules, and it could go on month after month after month without some sort of a gauge. So we talked with legal to make sure there were no issues related to rights and privileges and so forth that might be infringed, and there's none appear to be. Because the process is open, your actions were certainly, when you make actions, you make them for reasons, so we felt comfortable offering this as a rule.
I make a motion that we adopt Section 117 as part of the TLC rules.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is under entertainment transportation. We've been asked to consider whether to rescind or amend the prior motion to deny a certificate of public convenience and necessity for nightlife party tours. Mr. Fields?
As you, at the last couple of meetings, you've entertained these motions during that 60-day period that we had. We have the last 2 that have come forward, so they're 2 different hearings, 2 different people, and Mr. Holloman is ready to discuss Nashville Life Party Tours. We also have video that I think Mr. Holloman's provided. We've also had some supplemental just to make sure we.
Yes, I actually shared Mr. Stonis. I wasn't aware of that secondary video, but I think in light of that, if you want to just play that, I think that somewhat impacts our argument. Yeah. So if you want to just play the one that Terry sent to me, I think that's fine.
Okay.
But I am prepared to go forward. Yes.
Oh.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Holloman.
Sure, members of the commission. The video is available, but I'm also, rather than all of us sit through this, I'm happy to provide a summary, and then it's available if you want to take the time to discuss. But when my clients, and I will point out, I think Ms. Costonis gave advice during the meeting that there was no announcement or public notice provided that applicants had to be present for these. My client, this is a part-time job for him. He has a day job, and so he was not here because he had completed the application. Mr. Fields acknowledges on there that he has a complete application. The issue that was raised by the commission in its discussion was whether or not my client had stationary seating. This is a retrofitted box truck, and I think that the stationary seating was not visible in the photographs. He has photographs, is happy to provide that, but the questions were was there an actual closed plexiglass or a plexiglass enclosure? I think it wasn't entirely discernible from the photographs, but the answer to that question is yes, and the answer to whether there is stationary seating in the vehicle, and the answer to that is yes as well. And so factually, the grounds that were given for his denial are not accurate, and so for that reason, we would ask that that the decision be rescinded and reconsidered.
Any questions for Mr. Holloman? Thank you.
Thank you. May I add just one thing, which is it is my understanding, I know that there was a limit on the number of permits, and it is my understanding that since the time of that, some of the applications have not come to fruition for licensure. So I do believe that we would be within the number that are sort of out there and available at this point. This is just a single vehicle.
Mr. Fields, is it accurate that not all 39 permits have been filled?
At the present time, if everyone were to do what they have asked to do, we would have the 39 and 89 total. Again, we're in that time period where we have until October 3rd for the enclosures, which could very well affect the companies. So we won't know for certain, over a period of time, plus some additional legal actions that are also playing out. So there could very well be some changes.
So I appreciate the additional information and sort of the answers to those questions. I think over a period of time, because we're kind of in flux, I wonder about potentially deferring this to our next meeting, which would be after October 3rd, when we would have a sense of whether or not there were
We could have more
funds
information.
available.
We could have more.
Just a thought.
I'd be okay with that.
Could I ask a question? Have we inspected this vehicle?
We have not inspected this vehicle because it had not been approved. We certainly could do it before the next meeting. We are inspecting ETs. In fact, we spent this morning in a parking lot inspecting buses and trucks. And yesterday afternoon, when it was 100 degrees, we were inspecting them too.
You just wanted us to know that, right?
I did want to say that on the record. It was hot.
And we'd be happy to make it available for inspection, which might make your decision simpler.
Yeah,
That's
that
what
might
I
be.
was gonna say,
That might be another good idea for deferral, is to kind of see what's happening in flux, make sure that we're comfortable with the inspection, and then we could take it up at a future meeting.
Ms. Westlake, would you like to make a motion?
I would move that we defer consideration of whether or not to rescind or amend our prior motion about denial of a certificate of public convenience and necessity for nightlife party tours to our next meeting.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
May I just ask, is that October 27th? Is that correct?
I believe that's the date, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to consider whether to amend whether to rescind or amend our prior motion to modify a certificate of public convenience and necessity for Big Green Tractor Tours.
Thank you. I'm Sue Hamilton, and I represent the Big Green Tractor Tours LLC. And yes, that is my motion. So I was retained towards the end, and I knew nothing about these vehicles, and I had to do a lot of research. And I, too, felt the way the mayor felt, that they needed to be controlled. And I agreed with, I think you guys have done a great job. It's been so I was in a hard position trying to represent my client, yet agreeing with the other side. So I finally said, let me go on the tour. I got to go. So I challenge all of you to do the same. I had fun. It was great. I definitely see it in a different light. I still agree with all that you've implemented. One thing, not today, we could discuss, but I think there could be variations. But I needed to give you additional information and make sure you understood why they had applied for 2 rather than they were granted 1, 1 was denied, and so that's when I put in my request for you to reconsider. They need both. They do not drive them at the same time like a convoy. They stagger just 5-10 minutes apart, but it's because of large groups that want to be together. They don't need to be side by side, but I really admire what they have been able to do. And they did this before we started these regulations. They didn't like the traffic, and they didn't like to be in the traffic, so they staggered them, had them go in different directions, but would meet back with their group for photographs, whatever, bathroom breaks. And periodically, they would meet downtown on Broadway, side by side, and that was it. Then they would go off in different directions, which really helped with our traffic. They came up with that on their own. They've also are requesting only the 2, help me, I forgot, went blank. Yes, for only 2 nights a week when we have home games here. And then 3 days, that would be Friday night, Saturday, and periodically on Sunday during the other times. That's all they're requesting. I am a visual person, so I made, and I needed to understand everything, so I had them write out, let me understand exactly how these 2 different tractors pulled these wagons, accommodating 2 groups of people who wanted to be together. So I have that here for you. May I approach? Yep.
Yes.
Everything's sliding off. So there's wagon 1 and wagon 2. Whoever I need to, this is that 2. On that,
You can go make copies if need be.
so you can see they vary a little bit, and then it does tell how they come back together. Also at the bottom, it says during football games, so you know the schedule, and then when that's during the home football games, and then the other schedule when we don't have home football games. And it has the hours. Okay, and the other thing that I really did not understand at all. So I knew they had training for their operators, but I didn't understand the extent. I don't know if you've heard of Lincoln Tech College. Mm-hmm. Well, their operators all go there. They're getting ready to graduate. I think they have something like a 2-year degree, and they also have certificates that they can earn. The professor there actually does the training for the operators. And I said, where's the syllabus? Well, he didn't have one. So I said, provide me with one. And he did. So that's here too.
Just for your, Lincoln Tech is the former Nashville Diesel
Auto
College
Diesel College.
in East Nashville.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed with this because then I actually had to go down and meet him. I know everything about a tractor if you want to ask me. I can't believe what I've learned. But if you go through this outline, they can actually conduct their own inspections. So almost like an airplane, a flight, schedule, before they start, they actually go through the first half of that outline, which is, I was very impressed. I hope you are too. And as far as experience, the business has been, as you know, since it's 2018. But they grew up on farms, driving the tractors. So I'm sure you know the experience from that their entire life. And I'm really glad I came here early today because they also have wheelchair accessibility. And it's wheelchair accessibility from the sidewalk, not from the rear. And they've always had that. And they provide free rides to the disabled vets. So we are hoping you will reconsider that second application and grant that. They really need that running together, and they have not been running it since they were only granted 1.
If I could ask a question, have we inspected the one we approved?
We have not, but we're already familiar with their tractors.
If
No,
the
we-
picture
we-
that's on their website, is that looking
in-
closed to you?
They're one of the companies that early on asked us to, they encouraged us to come out, so they were ones that we actually looked at early before the process has started, so we would have some better understanding. When this all came up, they were one of the companies that came to us and said, where are the forms, let me fill them out now. So we are very familiar with Big Green Tractor Tours.
But you haven't inspected it to see if they're enclosed?
We have not gone back to the enclosure. There are several that have not enclosed from the standpoint of the October 3rd deadline. So they have, I think they're in this category, and I don't want to speak for Ms. Hamilton, but I do believe they have the material ready to enclose and will enclose when the deadline is present. Am I?
Yeah, they're already partially with the
Correct.
plexiglass, and I do have pictures if you'd like to see them.
I'm looking at your website.
Okay.
You haven't updated it then.
I haven't looked at that website. Would you like to see the pictures?
No.
I'm impressed. They have actual roll bars on one of them. If you see, I think that's on the website. But I went out and looked today. I learned all about compressors, generators, and air conditionings, and they're already on the party vehicles or the wagon. I've been impressed. They've done a really good job. I challenge you guys to get out there and take a ride.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Any questions, any additional questions? Thank you.
All right, when will I know if you are going to amend or rescind? And
2 minutes. That's what I think they're going to talk about now.
okay, all right, thank you.
I would say for me, this situation is similar. Talking about a single permit during a period of time when we're in flux. Seems to me that an inspection would be in order as well in this case, and potentially taking a look at it next month to see if there is any wiggle room. I'm not of a mind to expand the number of permits we're offering, but if there were ones available, I would certainly consider that.
Can somebody educate me as to what were the factors and considerations in deciding to grant one and not two for Big Green Tractor Tours?
We can play the segment from the meeting.
Mr. Fields, this is quite a change here with this technology and ability to go back to old meetings.
That's what happens when you disappear for 3 months.
I bring technology?
With great challenges comes great effort, and your staff is working hard to make sure you have information that you need. Indeed. Guess I get to be on TV again.
Just want to make sure I wasn't at that meeting and I've forgotten things already.
This was for one of your 8 hours.
I don't need an 8-hour tech.
It's not that long.
A summary would be just fine.
Were you operating during the COVID-19 shutdown?
We were shut down, we gave back over $60,000 refunds. But when we opened back up, they told us that we couldn't have alcohol, we had to wear a mask. And we did get pulled over for a mask. One of the girls took her mask down.
To operate a party lunch, I believe there was a period of time where party lunches weren't allowed to operate at all.
Right, we weren't allowed to operate at all. And then they opened us back up and we had to wear masks.
Was that
Tractor Tours. I make a motion to approve too. Is there a second? No second, motion fails. Anyone like to make a motion for granting one permit to Big Green Tractor Tours?
One of my questions is on, I see there's a complaint with enclosed and all that. Are they enclosed or not enclosed now?
Closed or not enclosed?
One wagon is partially enclosed. We took part of the panels off the last couple of weekends because it was so hot. But we did have one wagon enclosed. It's partially enclosed right now.
It'll have to be enclosed if
Right.
we award a permit.
Yes, sir, we understand.
Let's make a motion to approve one for the green tractor.
Second. All those in favor? Any nays? 3-1, motion passes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
All right.
To defer to the next meeting, consideration of whether or not to rescind or amend our prior motion to modify a certificate of public convenience and necessity for the Big Green Tractor Tours.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so, Ms. Hamilton, we've deferred the decision to next month. Next item is also under entertainment transportation. We've been asked to consider whether to amend our prior motion of adopted rules regarding liquor liability insurance.
Yes, I'm glad to speak to that. So, as you all know, we have a pending lawsuit with Honky Tonk Party Express. And there was a hearing on Tuesday at which there was a motion for a preliminary injunction from the Honky Tonk Party Express company. And it involved 3 different issues, one of which was the liquor liability insurance requirement of your rules. The judge did grant that motion for an injunction as to the liquor line insurance only, or, well, she said she was inclined to grant it, but I don't believe that her written ruling has actually been submitted yet. But in light of that and in light of the evidence that was submitted along with that, we kind of have to acknowledge that there may only be, in fact, one company that is providing this type of insurance. And we would like to investigate further and see if there are any other companies that are able to make this product available. But we have not had adequate time to research that. And so we would recommend at a minimum that you defer this rule for a period of time sufficient to allow us to determine if this is really a feasible type of insurance.
Would it be fair to say our choices would be to defer it for a reasonable period of time for you to investigate about other insurance carriers, or we could remove that particular provision requirement?
Yes,
or
you
we
could certainly do that.
sit in defiance of the Chancery Court?
We would not defy the Chancery Court. We would not consider that option.
All right. How much time would be needed to adequately investigate the matter?
From a staff standpoint, I can assure you that we have spent hours, not only in our office, but with our insurance manager for Metropolitan Government, as well as the legal department, the other part of the legal department, as well as working with speaking with insurance agents and so forth. I would, if you would say, what would I prefer, is I would prefer an indefinite deferral till we can bring information back to you or a solution to the issue, because there may be other solutions that, again, when challenges come up, we try to rise to the occasion to come back with solutions to make sure that public safety is protected. And that's what this is all about. It's not about trying to make somebody have more insurance. It's a matter of we want to make sure that the public's protected. So that's obviously why we have insurance. So I think an indefinite, and again, unless my lawyer says that we should have a time frame, I would say indefinite. And we will continue working as fast as we can and bring back information to you as quickly as we can.
And the practical effect right now is that we grant a permit, but it's impossible for them to comply with the requirements because purportedly they're unable to obtain the liquor liability insurance.
It is not impossible. Some of the companies that you have granted certificates to have the insurance. It is, however, one provider in the country, a company called Prime Specialty or Prime Insurance. It is. We've looked at quotes and we've looked at bids and so forth and so on, and it is expensive insurance. Some have already been able to get it. Some have had an easier time getting it. Others are actually waiting for quotes. I had one send me an email just before the meeting and said, I can't get an answer. So they are concerned. Our certificate holders, for the most part, are working hard to comply with these rules. And they're challenged by this, and they do not want to, many of them saying, I'm just not going to operate till I meet all your rules. And again, this rule's in question. I don't know what's going to happen with any court hearing, but by taking this action, it will give us an opportunity to continue work to make sure we are being fair. And we're still trying to protect the public safety.
Thank you.
So in other words, we would want you to allow them to continue operating, move forward with their certificates in the interim while the deferral is in place.
I mean, the truth of the matter, there are companies, the only thing they're missing right now on the checklist would be their insurance for liquor liability. Tracy, come
You'll
on.
need to come forward.
And introduce yourself.
My name is Tracy Garrett. I'm with Big Green Tractor Tours. I've been in the insurance business for 25 years, and me and Mr. Fields have talked several times about this issue. Liquor liability. In order to have liquor liability, you have to sell liquor. The cost of the insurance is based on how much liquor you sell. We are not allowed to sell liquor on our wagons. We don't sell any kind of alcohol on our wagons at all whatsoever. So therefore, the companies that I have reached out to, they will not provide us any liquor liability insurance because we don't sell it. What are your gross annual receipts? 0. We can't help you. I get that time and time and time again. Mr. Fields sent a lady to me. I'm not sure, I can't remember her name. She was an insurance agent, independent. She says, oh, yeah, I can get that for you, I can get that for you. It's going to be expensive. I said, I don't care, I need it. She ain't called me back yet. So our hands are tied when it comes to this liquor liability. And you said somebody's already gotten a policy, probably some subprime company, I don't know, maybe a B plus company, something like that.
It's actually from Prime, the insurance company.
The company's called Prime. I've never heard of them, doesn't mean anything, but I'm just telling you that they are putting together something that they're just throwing it out there. They're going to write you some kind of policy. They're going to say, okay, you're selling such and such amount of coverage of liquor or alcohol, and they're going to charge a premium based on some fictional number, because technically we are absolutely not supposed to be selling any kind of alcohol. It's against the law for us to do that, and we don't. We run our ship by the book.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
You don't sell alcohol on the...
No, sir, we do not.
Hold on. Big Green Tractor Tours.
Correct.
Are people allowed to bring their own beer?
It's BYOB, yes, sir.
All right, so you have alcohol on the,
yes,
on
sir.
the vehicle.
Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between selling it and a BYOB. It's kind of like if I come over to your house with a case of beer and you're not split a case of...
Sir, I understand the difference. I just want to know whether there's alcohol on the...
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely.
On the vehicle or not.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, I do think it makes a lot of sense to defer implementation if we're having issues with potential certificate holders getting the insurance in the first place.
My 2 cents are that I agree. I make a motion that we defer the liquor liability insurance requirement indefinitely, pending hearing back from Ms. Costanas and Mr. Fields.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Yeah, there's some discussion here. Go ahead.
Just a question, I'm just curious relative to level playing field. Do we know how many, we mandated they get it, some people got it, it was super expensive, we're told, right? Do we know how many people have the insurance today?
I believe there are actually 3 that have it. There are others that have quotes, and they're prepared to buy it. The quotes, one of the companies asked the question, what was the price? And it was, one vehicle was $25,000. One of the other companies had be a total of 3 vehicles, and it was $250,000 coming from the same company.
Do you know what the people who have it have spent? I mean, do we have a, right,
Well,
I hate that somebody has gotten it and spent a bunch of money for it, and that we're saying we're not gonna enforce.
I asked the question,
policy.
and I was advised that it was a fee. The one company at the $25,000, I believe, was like a 40% upfront, and then monthly after that was the way I understood it.
Thank you.
How many companies without it right now?
Or without it?
Yeah.
If there are, there would be 34 companies, I think, would not have it right now. Again, I think they're in various stages. Some have not been able to get a quote. One of them, again, before the other, he said, they won't call me back. But there are others that are ready to punch the button. They also knew that the lawsuit was, that there was legal actions going. I also knew that we're having a hearing today.
It's unfortunate for the few companies that have already outlaid substantial dollars for the insurance.
When might we hear back from legal, I guess pending the litigation? And what did you say, there's something pending in court today where they may?
It was 2 days ago. So we had a hearing before Chancellor Moskal, who is the judge in this case, 2 days ago on Tuesday. And like I said, she made an oral ruling that she was inclined to grant the injunction as to the liquor liability insurance. I don't believe that we have yet seen her written order. I don't believe that's yet come out. You know, certainly we do feel like, given that and you know, given the kind of situation where we maybe don't have all the information we need, the deferral is recommended.
Indefinite deferral or 30 days?
I don't think 30 days would be enough, would be my opinion.
You know, I've got a motion on the table right now for an indefinite deferral, but I was wondering if we could ask for a 30-day update, and that way we could take action as we could take action upon the information provided during the updates. Because I'd be
Certainly.
curious, I would encourage everybody to continue to try to get the insurance so that we see if it starts to develop.
If a market starts to develop,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, so, I mean, I don't think that the lawsuit will be resolved within 30 days, but I do think I would be glad to come back and tell you whatever additional information is available at that time.
The other thought is that I also join in the sympathy for the companies that have outlaid a large amount of money already for the insurance. But if we have an indefinite deferral, but encourage the companies to continue to look for it, hopefully they'll take that kind of action and maybe it'll develop a market for that insurance. And that will also let the companies that don't have the insurance have it right, that don't have it right now, not go out there and try to start laying out money for it. where they may, because if the lawsuit says, hey, I'm going to remove that requirement, then more people might be injured by it. I don't know if I made sense here, but what I'm trying to say is that with a deferral, the other companies won't have to get it right now pending the lawsuit.
Well, just so I'm understanding, Chancellor Moskow's order is based on the fact, that hasn't come out yet, but that I guess she's articulated from the bench on Tuesday, is she found that there was no
harm to Metro.
no harm in allowing that to be on hold.
Yes. Basically, Metro Legal represented to the Chancellor that this commission had this meeting today and that it was on the agenda and that we were anticipating you might take action on it and that action might be a deferral. And in light of that information, she determined that there was no, it's a standard irreparable harm to Metro for an injunction and declined to, or was inclined to grant that part of the injunction, which was sought by Honky Tonk Party Express, not by
Is it
Metro.
only as to Honky Tonk Party Express, or would it be to all the companies?
Certainly it was worded, because I haven't seen the written order yet, I'm not sure that I can tell you, but I mean, certainly we would recommend that we treat all companies as similarly as possible.
What is the standard by which Chancellor Moskow, what's the standard she applied? Was it, she determined that the decision to require it was arbitrary and capricious, or did she have some other ruling?
No, because it was a motion for an injunction, she was looking at like whether if the company was trying to show that because they couldn't get the insurance, that and I don't want to put words in their mouths, they may be here and may be able to make the argument better than I can, but that they were trying to argue that because they couldn't get the insurance, that they were effectively barred from operating until they could, and that that was causing irreparable harm to them, which, then you look at Metro's side of the equation, and because we were already talking about considering deferring it also, she didn't see any harm on our side of the equation, so.
So no findings really on that issue, just the fact that it's difficult to purchase right now, and we were already considering deferring.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, an oral ruling, and it was really, she stated it was an inclination, not an absolute decision at that point in time. But, I mean, I would assume that that is what the order will say when it comes out.
Well, I think it makes sense to defer, just so the other companies are not incurring this expense that may or may not be necessary until we hear back from Mr. Fields and his office as to, is this insurance a viable requirement. All right, so we have a motion and a second to indefinitely defer consideration, or excuse me, the liquor liability. We're ready to vote to indefinitely defer the decision to require liquor liability insurance, and that Mr. Fields is going to report back to us as to and give a status at next month's meeting regarding efforts to as to the marketability of this type of insurance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, under other business, we've been asked to review a draft of the TLC meeting schedule for 2023.
In the last several years, we have offered our suggestion of what the calendar might be. This calendar is very similar to what you've seen historically. We have added entertainment vehicle annual hearing in February, which would establish it as you have to have an annual meeting. And we did that because their annual renewal is in the month of March. So what it would do is you would be able to you've asked to review all of the existing certificates, and then you would also be reviewing any requests for new certificates or changes to the existing certificates. So it would be a pretty comprehensive meeting. We would ask that the deadline for applications be Tuesday, June the 10th. That's in keeping with all of the annual meetings we try to have a 45-day period in advance. So we will begin, assuming you approve this schedule today, we'll begin advertising, utilizing our partners at Metro 3 as well as on our website, and circulate it widely for the taxi annual hearing, the entertainment vehicle annual hearing, the emergency wrecker, low speed and pedal, as well as annual horse drawn carriage hearings. And with the exception of November and December, they would be the fourth Thursday of the month at 1:30 in this room. The room has been reserved next year if you choose this schedule. If you change the dates, we'll certainly seek new dates.
These dates look all fine to me.
Let me go back and check my calendar. I'll get back with you.
That's the other side. We'd like to get it to you as early as we can, so you can schedule your vacations around it, because we know you like to do that.
Does this require a motion to approve these meetings?
I think it's appropriate, yes.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed 2023 meetings of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission as provided to us.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Any other business, Mr.
I
Fields?
think the only other business I would add, and I don't have it in front of me, but the Metropolitan Code requires that in the even years of a commission's term, in the October meeting, you would consider officers. Your officers would be a chair, a vice chair, and of course, I guess your executive secretary. But we would suggest that at the October meeting, you'll need to consider who officers will be for another 2-year period.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.